That's Marco D'Amico. Follow him online at MN D'Amico with RG Media, joining us as he does right here on the Shaun Star Show. Please like this video. It certainly helps grow our community, and we're doing a great job of it. Thanks primarily to all the love you guys have been sharing on a consistent basis, and it helps to have someone as good as Marco on to help shed some light on some interesting topics. And that takes us, I suppose, to the Canadiens' rebuilding timeline here, and trying to level up and trying to be the team I think we all want them to become again, and be consistently competitive, and not have these fluky occurrences that get them in based on set circumstances. So let's talk about the Canadian depth chart here. And as we say RIP to Cap Friendly, we say hello to our friends here at Puckpedia. I don't know. Do you have a better website? I like using this one, I guess, just to follow as best as I can. So that
wages.
Yeah, that's basically, the Canadiens depth chart here. As we look through it, and if you're a diehard fan, obviously you know the names that you're seeing on your screen, right? And we get down to the depth chart, and as the Canadiens are in the midst of falling further out of the playoff race, I wonder, and we ask this question often, they're a young team. They skew very much on the smaller side, even though they are learning to have a tougher attitude, building a tougher kind of culture here, right? And part of me believes some of that has caught up with them, and the results are what you're seeing. So when you look at the Canadiens and we talk about the rebuilding timeline, you alluded to having a right shot defenseman, and they're going to have some options to discover, whether it's a Logan Mailloux or whether that's David Reinbacher. Can they step up? Can they fill those voids? What is Montreal missing? When you look at other teams and you look at teams that are also rebuilding and perhaps a year or two ahead of the Canadiens, and you look over at their fence and their grass is pretty green because of what type of player do you think the Montreal Canadiens are need to pursue in order to get to where they want to be?
Well, if you look at a team like the Columbus Blue Jackets, right? Like what's standing out this year? They're getting good to average goaltending.
Yes.
But Zach Werenski is having a heart level season, right? So their strength is on the back end. Ironically, from a team that just traded David Jiricek, it's their defense that's propelling them, and they're getting some sneaky good offense from guys like Sean Monahan or Voronkov, for example, or even Kent Johnson that's playing rather well. So like you have guys that are upward trending, but a number one defenseman, like a true number one defenseman, the Canadiens do not have. Like, I'm sorry. And there is a chance that Lane Hudson can develop into one, and that would be fantastic. But that's, in my opinion, what has held them back from the beginning of this rebuild, is that they never went out and got themselves a true number one. Now, Hudson has all the potential in the world to be a top pair D, but if he's not going to be a true number one, then you need two number twos, right? Like that's the way I see it. So that's why I'm constantly saying, if the Canadiens can go out, like you're looking at a team, for example, like if the New York Islanders were to blow it up, Noah Dobson would be at the top of my list.
Sure.
Right? Like that's the kind of player that they would need. If, you're starting to talk to teams that are considering, maybe we need to make a change, and you're the Buffalo Sabres, and they're looking to trade like a Bowen Byram, that's a player that you'd be talking about. Like the Flames shot down any potential for this, but Rasmus Anderson in Calgary, another ideal candidate in that regard. So it's very difficult to fill those shoes because there's so few of them. There's basically 15 of them in the league right now.
Yeah.
So you basically have to get lucky and draft them.
What have you heard about Reinbacher though? Like, can Reinbacher in the best? Can he fill that? Can he be that guy? Like, I think Caden Gooley is a first pair defenseman. I don't know if he's a number one defense. I think he's a first pair. I think he's a complement to a number one defenseman in the perfect world. But is David Reinbacher cut from the same mold? Then are we talking about the same player?
Well, so this is what I was saying. You either have a number one and a fleet of good defensemen, or you have a couple of number twos, right? And so I think the combination of Hudson, Gooley, and a well-developed David Reinbacher would be enough to keep them above average within the NHL. But I think that not having that can't-miss stud on the back end that could play both ends in physical hockey, like I think Lane Hudson could eventually become that. I think so. I honestly, since the first day I spoke to him, watching him on the ice, talking to those around him, talking to his coaches, he has that intelligence to be more of a Adam Fox than a Shane Gostisbehere, in my opinion, right? Because both had crazy rookie seasons, but one went one way, one went the other. So I feel like Hudson, unfortunately, unlike those younger guys, is being given way too much, way too soon on a team that's frankly, in my opinion, potentially overplayed themselves over the last month. So
right.
You have Reinbacher. I think that could do well. A defenseman that no one's talking about is Adam Engstrom, who's playing quite well in Laval as well. So,
dude, the Rocket are a wagon, brother.
Yeah, quite a wagon. So there are options. There are definitely options, and I feel like at forward, by drafting a guy like Ivan Demidov, and then going to get a guy like Michael Hage, be he a center of the future playing, be he a future second line center or a very speedy winger, you've introduced two players that at worst will occupy your top 9, but could very realistically occupy your top 6. So to me, it's about continuing to add pieces so that you're not a 1-line team, you're a 3-line team come next season. And the Canadiens, as we talked about, have 2 first-round picks, 2 second-round picks, 3/3, and a boatload of prospects to make that happen.
I love the poker analogies. Lots of outs there. I love lots of outs. Don't give me I don't need a 1 card out here, a chip at a chair and a hope at a prayer.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll ask you this question at the sake of perhaps upsetting some people. Nick Suzuki a number 1 center? A number. Think about the elite teams in hockey, teams that you are looking at. They can win Stanley Cups. They can challenge for conference titles.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to preface this because everybody sometimes gets really sensitive. I really like Nick Suzuki. I think he is a high-end player. I think he's exceptionally smart. I think he can change the pace of play like a good starting pitcher. You play at my pace. When he's in his zone, he's very good at doing that. I like Nick Suzuki, but I wonder when I watch the Mark Scheifele's of the world roll into town, I watch the Matthew Tkachuks fight and compete and win Stanley Cups. I watch Patrice Bergeron forever with the Boston Bruins, and down the list we go. Do you think the Montreal Canadiens with a good ensemble cast are good with Nick Suzuki and the future moving forward as the number 1 center on the Canadiens?
Yes, if.
Okay.
And I think that's the key here. I think if you look at the way that Nick Suzuki plays, he's a top 30 center in the NHL. That to me makes him a number 1 center, right? By definition.
Yeah.
Now, is he in the elite category? It's tough to tell because what elite pieces is he playing with?
Right.
Right. You look at all the elite number 1 centers, like Mark Scheifele plays with Kyle Connor. Right?
Oh my God. Exactly. Yes.
Take Kyle Connor away, and he's going to have a tougher time, right? He'll be a point per game player, probably. You look at obviously you have the untouchable centers that make everybody around them better, like
correct.
McDavid, McKinnon, Barkov, guys like that. Eichel, for example.
Yes.
But
the
if
next
you look,
level guys, yes.
Yeah, but if you look at the team that's number 1 in the standings right now, would you call Dylan Strome a first-line center?
Yes, it's a great point. It's a great point. But on that team, in that environment, with everybody pulling at the same time in the same direction, yes, he is.
But you see, he only breaks out this year because they went and got a competent and physical second-line center in Pierre-Luc Dubois. And so this is where my yes, but comes into this conversation. I feel like if the Canadiens are going to be a team that's going to perennially challenge for the Stanley Cup, unfortunately, it's going to either require a significant uptick in Kirby Dach's development or the acquisition of a true second line center that can give you 70 points at, range a season.
Yeah.
That's the way I view it. And I feel like, we have to, there are many teams in the NHL. There are many different iterations of what success looks like. And I feel like if it comes to the point where Nick Suzuki can play with a player that is better than he, right? So like we look at the way that Marco Rossi has benefited from playing next to Kirill Kaprizov. That's the kind of impact I'd be looking at. That's the kind of
Ivan Demidov with Nick Suzuki.
I did like eventually like my view on this and the way that I've always seen this is that I would appreciate one day separating Caulfield and Suzuki.
I
When you have
agree. I agree. Yes.
and I
Yes.
again, like it's just because they were the only guys when the Canadiens started their rebuild that anybody could put together and there'd be an offensive production. But I feel like eventually for the sake of 5-on-5 play, it would make more sense if a better, more established second line center could come in and alleviate Nick Suzuki of a lot of these responsibilities, because a less gassed, more concentrated and focused Nick Suzuki is a number one center in my opinion. And I think he's just being asked to do too much at this point. So if you bring in, I'll give you a direct example. Okay. Like if you look at the way that Sasha Barkov was always targeted when he was in Florida, and then they brought in Sam Bennett.
Yeah.
Right. And then Sam Reinhart could also play center. And then you have Lundell. And then you have Rodriguez. Like they just added all these centers, all these opportunities. And what does it do? It opened up Barkov's opportunities. And then Barkov became the 100-point center that we all saw him to become. So it's that kind of situation where I feel like if you were to bring in actual help, where the Canadiens matchups wouldn't just be, okay, stop the top line, when you have two lines or even a third line, if Jake Evans and Heineman and guys like Armia find chemistry again, then it becomes very difficult from a matchup perspective, and you can roll lines in the offensive zone and just hammer them. And that is when you start seeing offense thrive in the NHL. And so I think they're missing that. But once that happens, I'm expecting, because they're already sacrificing offense for a little bit of defense here. So I don't think their point totals would go down if they got help. In fact, I feel like it would go up.
Right. That's Marco D'Amico. Follow him at MN D'Amico, Twitter, Blue Sky, and everything in between. And with RG Media, of course, always great to join us on the Shaun Star Show on YouTube.com. Marco, brother, great stuff as always. Thank you so much for your time. Let's do it again soon.
Sounds like a plan.